Welcome to the first podcast, and here we go with fabulous, fabulous guest. For those of you that don't know you, although most of you probably do, Lynn Pratt is an American artist with a lot of feathers in her arc because she's a professional artist. She's got signature memberships to American Watercolour Society, Vermont Watercolour Society, West East, is it? Watercolour Society. Yeah.
North.
You're the founder of Women in Watercolour competition. There's a lot going on. So I think in particularly the time that we're at, Lynn has got a lot to share with us. So welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So I'm very interested in the fact that the two of us both have white backgrounds, black jumpers, and we look extremely non-colourful. So we're going to have to spark this conversation up with words because the colour's missing. So what I find really interesting about you, one of the things, there's loads of things, but one of the things is that you studied architecture. Architecture was your background.
Yes. So I went to school in Boston and studied architecture. Absolutely loved it. Before that, I had actually worked for architects, so I had done it all through high school and everything as well. And then went to college for it, graduated, worked as an architect for quite a few years. I had my kids. And once I had my kids, I actually left the practice I was in and opened my own practice so that I could start it up at home and stay home with my kids. So I did that for a few more years. And then once my kids finally got to the age where I could do a little bit of stuff on my own, I decided to start painting. I had taken one watercolor class while I was in college. And I was like, you know what? I still have those paints sitting somewhere. They don't go bad. And watercolor is so easy. If the kids are napping and I'm painting, you know, I could just stop painting, leave it, and come back anytime and the paint won't dry. So I was like, that would be perfect. Oh, am I still on here? I have.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. My thing, something changed on my screen here.
That's fine. What's kind of amusing is that you paint still lifes, yet you did architecture.
Yes.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Well, again, when I first started painting, I was painting just about everything at home. So I would go out and take pictures when I had time, but then I would come back and paint in my studio. So that worked out really well for me because I was able to paint when I wanted and things like that. So, and I really liked, I live in Vermont, so there's lots of like old barns and rusty things and metal and wood grain. So I really enjoyed photographing that. So that's what I started painting. And I just got really into painting kind of small objects big instead of painting the Vermont landscape and everything like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it's a big jump from architecture to still life. And I'm actually doing still lifes in my courses at the moment. And a lot of people tell me that still life subjects are not as interesting to paint. And I don't agree. Still life paintings, I think, offer more flexibility. I think we can be a lot more creative, not just in the technique, but color choices and all sorts of things. But you've got amazing still lifes that are, I'd say, as real as real, you know, whether it be the baseballs, the corks. I'm going to put some images up so everyone can see. I saw that you had a little video of a shoe that you just painted.
Yeah.
That looks really cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun painting shoes lately too. That's kind of become my other obsession. I have a teenage son and he got really into like high-end sneakers and started collecting them and everything. So I started photographing and painting them. So I've been having a lot of fun with him doing stuff with like really nice sneakers and stuff like that. So I've been painting them and they just have such amazing colorways and details and everything that's kind of another thing that I've been having a lot of fun painting too.
Okay. So you take your own photos, correct?
Yes. So everything that I paint, besides I did a painting of the moon and I couldn't get a good photo, but just about every single thing that I paint, I take my own photos. I think that's a huge part of the creative process. If you're a plein air painter or you're painting landscapes and you're out in the element, you know, you're using your creative artistic ability to make the scene, to set exactly, you know, what is going to be in your painting. And I think if you're painting a still life or an object and you use someone else's reference photo, that's half of it, in my opinion, of course. But I feel like part of it is how you set up that painting, how you photograph it, your lighting, your shadows, your colors, what your backdrop is. All those things make such a huge impact in the final piece of work that if you don't take your own photo, that's kind of half of the creative process right there, not coming up with your own image. So I take probably just as much time setting up my images, picking what I'm going to paint, how I'm going to set it, my lighting, my backdrops, all those things. And so starting from there, then I'll take hundreds of images usually, and then I'll go in and edit them in Photoshop. So say I'm taking a picture of a flower, I'll go in, I'll take like the perfect petal, the perfect leaf, maybe like a dead bud, you know, and mix them in and then come up with the perfect composition in Photoshop. So just because I've taken pictures of the flowers, I then kind of usually change it around. I very rarely just go from one image. It's usually really edited to kind of really come up with the exact composition that I want, all the elements perfectly in place. Then once I come up with that photo, then that is what I paint from. So it's usually like a combination of what I'm seeing in real life and then kind of changing all the elements exactly how I want them to come up with that final image. And then, of course, when I paint it, I usually change it around a little bit as well. It doesn't always look exactly like the reference photo. So, you know, lots of people say, like, what's the point of painting it if you can have a photo of it? I'm like, well, it usually doesn't look exactly like the photo because, like, I brighten highlights or darken shadows or change up some color combinations or things like that to really make that final painting be amazing, you know, where it catches your eye and the colors are beautiful and everything like that. So there's lots of steps to get to that point. It's not just, oh, I'm painting an exact replica of one photo that I found on the internet that was already perfect, you know, so there's lots of other steps that go into coming up with those final pieces. And I think lots of people who see photorealistic art don't understand that a lot of times all those steps are in getting to that final product, that it is a huge creative process as well.
Yeah, and I think it's actually, like you say, really important because you appropriate it. It becomes your image. And it's actually one of the biggest hurdles, I think, for a lot of people who are learning to paint, how they can not just copy a photo, how they can either alter the photo, whether it be to actually modify it, whether it be on a computer app or just from imagination. But that creative process is actually where all the choices are made. Your color choices, you know, the way you're going to paint it, even the size and the shape of the painting. You know, all of your choices are made during that early creative process before you even start touching the sheet. And I think a lot of amateurs and beginners probably don't measure the importance of that beginning step, which you've just laid out really well. And that's where it's all made. That's where everything sort of pulls together. Is that what you think as well?
Yes. Yeah. And I have, you know, I have an online school. I have couple hundred students at the time. And I also do private mentor with one-on-one as well, students. And I do tutorials. And again, I supply the reference photo. I supply the line drawing, all those things. But I also include lots of classes in my online school that show people how to get to that point. So I always, you know, I show you the perfect pair, and that's what you're painting in that class. And if you're learning how to paint and you haven't painted, that's perfect. But to go from there, you know, once you've learned the basic principles of painting, if you want to enter a competition, if you want to sell your artwork, if you want to move, if you're just painting as a hobby and you enjoy painting, that's fine. Just paint, you know, whatever you would like, and that's no problem. But if you're trying to get to the next step of art and being an artist and getting in those competitions and things like that, then it really needs to be your own work from the beginning, and your creative process, because seeing something and saying, oh, that would make a great painting, and then making it into a great painting are two totally different things. And just having a photo provided and doing a painting from it is different than thinking, I want to paint, you know, a cup of coffee, and that's what I want a painting of on my wall. So do I paint my cup from the front? Do I paint my cup from the top? Do I have a spoon on it? Am I looking at an angle? Is it vertical, horizontal? So all those things go into coming up with that image, and it completely affects the end result. So I always try to include lots of information, both in my social media and in my online school, in my classes and everything. And every class I teach, I say, like, this is what we're going to paint. And I kind of give a little bit of a background on how I got that image and how I started from and why we're painting it that way. Because I think that's just as important as, you know, what you're actually painting. So I try to kind of get that through to new artists.
Yeah, I think it's actually becoming more important, to be honest, because so many people today have gotten to a certain level already with their painting. Even beginners are getting to a good level pretty quickly. Yeah. But then people get stuck because they no longer want to copy, whether it be the teacher or a photo. And that early conceptual phase is not really taught very much. And so I think it's actually, for a lot of people, they may already have a good level, and it's kind of having to go backwards and learn the beginning steps, rather than just sort of developing them. Because like you say, you know, a painting that you're going to paint for yourself for your own pleasure, a painting that you're going to put in a competition, or perhaps you want to put in a solo show or a group show, because they're two completely different things. Perhaps you want to sell it, perhaps you want to go for a prize, perhaps it's just for your living room, or for a present. They're completely different mindsets. Now, you created Women in Watercolour, okay? It's a competition. It's a brilliant competition, by the way, because the level is so high. We're going to talk about the level in a minute. So you're obviously on the mindset of competitions are important. Why? Why for you why did you create Women in Watercolour? And secondly, the question that everyone will pose is also, why is it just women?
Yep. So when I started my online school and I started teaching one-on-one and traveling and teaching, I had so many women that were in my classes that were in person. But once I started my online school, I had so many women from international. And things are different in lots of other countries as well. However, also within the US, I think some women, a lot of women have had a home, raised their children, whether or not they were working during that time as well and had full careers. But they kind of, you know, they take care of their home, they take care of their kids, and they see art as a hobby. And lots of people that I worked with were these amazing artists, and they were terrified to enter a competition. They were just overwhelmed by the whole process of it, about not only doing the painting, but then framing it, shipping it, how to do all that. And so this was pre-COVID. Everything that I had done up to this point, you had to mail in. Every competition that I had joined, and joining all those competitions, entering them, getting accepted was a huge part of my career. It was kind of what brought me to that next level, knowing that I could enter these huge competitions and my paintings were getting in and getting awards and things like that. And it increased my self-confidence so much that I thought, this is amazing, you know, and I want these people that love painting and love doing this to be able to experience that. without having necessarily all of the pressure. The majority of my students were women. And when you look at the big competition, the majority of the people were men. And I decided to try something for women only, something that they could enter, that we could really get these amazing women artist names out there. Because when I looked at that point, this was about 5 years ago, when I was looking at the judges for the main shows, when I was looking for the winners of the main shows, the majority of people that entered were all male, yet the majority of people that took my classes, painted with me, dealt with me online, were almost majority female. And I was like, let's have something just for this group of people, you know, to kind of get their names out there, get them more exposure. And that was kind of the whole thought behind it. The fact that it was online only, you didn't have to deal with framing. You didn't have to deal with shipping. All those added huge costs, you didn't have to do. You could create your work in your own home or studio, photograph it, and submit it into the competition. And it had to be all from your own reference photo. That was the beginning of it. You could not use another photo. You could not use another artist photo, whether you had permission or not. You had to either do it plein air, you know, in person from still life, or it had to be from your own photograph, so that you really were encouraging artists to have that creative process from the beginning.
Yeah. I hear you. You know, I've been judging for a long time, and I've also been in a lot of international shows, and I have had sort of comments on both sides, because I didn't actually identify what you're just talking about. I mean, in my courses, most people are women, okay, and I think that's a general thing. Interestingly enough, in my online courses, in a lot of the online courses, I have a much larger community of men. Not proportionally, there's more women than men, but there are a lot more men than that were in the inside courses, on the real life courses. But what I did realize later, and this goes back to 2014, is that I didn't actually notice it, but I was the only woman. I was often the only woman judge, and I was often the only woman in an international show. And to be honest, in the very beginning, I didn't actually click, because you don't see all the names in the beginning. You just sort of turn up, and then all of a sudden at some point you're like,
I'm the only female here.
Yeah, but it wasn't even me that made the comment. It was actually other people. And then it was actually other people saying, why are you the only one? And I'm like, I don't know. But it is harder for women. And I know it's harder for women. And I don't like, to be perfectly honest, I don't like that sort of mindset that we sort of say it's different for women than for men. When it comes to painting, you need headspace and you need time. And there is just, nature does its thing. They're called children, and they disrupt absolutely every single plan you've ever had. It's not really as possible for a woman to say, you know what, it's 8 o'clock, I'm going to shut the door and I'm going off to work, you deal with it. And every single woman artist that I've spoken to says the same thing. They come back to this, you know, I tried to maintain painting when I had my children. It was really hard. And I know it was, because I actually went way down into a burnout, because I maintained my job, if you like, in the sense of painting, exhibitions and judging. I maintained it. But I ended up in the hospital. So I know how heavy that was. So this is an experience talking. But I was doing it on my own as well. And I was raising my children on my own. So, you know, everyone's different. But women do have a harder time. All throughout history, there is that space of time where all of a sudden you may see a famous woman artist, but she's 60.
Yep.
Because that gap, that age gap.
You waited until your kids were grown and out of the house, and then you started what you wanted to do. And again, I'm not generalizing that is all women at all. There are obviously lots of women that are better multitasking with those sorts of things. But again, it is one of those things. Like, I waited till my kids were old enough to start painting so that I could spend my time doing that outside of my job, because I was working full time as well in architecture and needed that extra time to paint. And I am very lucky. I have an absolutely amazing husband that's super supportive and is amazing raising the children with me. And I say, I need to do this. No problem. I'll take the kids out of the house, or I'll, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you have your time to do your stuff as well. Also, when our kids were probably 3 and 5, I started doing shows where I would go on a Friday, set up, and then be at a show all weekend, selling art and being there all day long. So I would be gone Friday evening. I would come home after I set up, but I'd leave early Saturday, be gone all day Saturday, come home Saturday night. And I did about 9 or 10 shows a year. And of course, that's only from, summer through fall. So that's a lot of time in order to dedicate that to my art business. Again, at that point, I was still working full time as well during the week for my architecture firm. And so again, I have an amazing husband who, was like, I've got the kids, I'll figure it out. Go ahead and do it. This is important. I also have amazing parents and in-laws that, step in and help out as well. So I was super fortunate, but not everybody has that situation. Not everybody is able to do that. And I realized that I was super fortunate because I had lots of friends that are like, I don't understand how you can go do something for a whole weekend. That's crazy, whether it's work or not. I can't even imagine doing that. So again, I was super fortunate to be able to do that. But from all these other women that I was talking to and teaching and working with, that was not the case at all. And they said, oh, I wish I had time to sit down and work on a painting to enter into a competition. I just don't have that time, or, can't set aside that amount from most people that start out painting. They aren't doing it full time. They also have a full-time job, and they're fitting it in those extra spaces, which is usually when you're spending it with your family. So it is very hard to juggle to start out, for sure.
Yeah, completely. Okay, so we've got supporting women, helping women find a place. Let's also say, like you suggested, it's easier because you don't have to physically go. You don't have to worry about the framing, is there custom duties that you have to pay to get your painting into a country and all that sort of stuff. So it really is a platform that is pretty much no risk at all. I would say so important. I mean, you've experienced it. I think we've all experienced it. The feeling that you get when you get selected into a competition, particularly one of the first ones, you fly. You're absolutely
the best
elated.
Feeling ever. And it doesn't even matter if it's a big one. I still remember I entered the Vermont Watercolour Society. I had been painting for a couple months. I mean, literally painting for a couple months. And I joined and I went to one of their meetings, and I was so inspired by meeting all these other artists. And I entered their show, and it wasn't their award show. It was just like their, main yearly show that they do for members. And my painting got in, and it was hung in a real gallery on the wall with all these other paintings. And I mean, like, my whole family came out, it wasn't even an award show, but it was just so amazing to see something that I created up on a wall, but be accepted, get that letter or email or whatever that says you're selected, you got in. And it is the best feeling to get into those shows. And it is a huge confidence boost, to do those things.
It is. And I think that not just personally for the artist, but if, we all paint in this, most of us paint in the studio. Most of us then would be putting our painting into a selection process that people haven't commented on. It's just us selecting it and putting that into the selection process. But now all of a sudden you've got a public and a judge or judges looking at your paintings. So you're getting input from other people. And as an artist, to step back and see for the first time your painting, not just on the wall framed, because it looks completely different when they're framed and they're on the wall, but amongst other paintings, you can start to say, oh, my painting doesn't stand out enough. Oh, my colors are not strong enough. They're not, grabbing the eye of people as they go past. They're too big. They're too small. They're fantastic. You all of a sudden, you get to start to measure your paintings in the field of watercolor, which is one of the reasons why I started judging, because I realized that all of a sudden, it's not just me, and it's not just the judge, me as the artist and the judge. Now all of a sudden, oh yeah, we're actually painting for the public. And everybody forgets that when you paint for yourself for the pleasure. You may be painting for the judge because you want to get selected, but the majority of the people that are going to see your painting and are going to give you input are actually the public. And there's a massive dynamic, which is so exciting, because you'll see people walk past certain paintings, stop in front of others, and you can start to learn how this process works. Now, I've watched Women in Watercolor. It's an online show, but I've watched that as the shows have happened over the years, because this is the 5th, isn't it?
This is the 5th. Yep. This year just opened for entry, and this is the 5th year. Yep.
Yeah. And so I've watched each selection process, like in the sense that these are the paintings that have been selected. And it's really interesting because, this is one of the things that we're not supposed to say, but I'm going to say it. I'm a very honest person who gives my opinion, even when it's not asked sometimes. The level of your show, I think, is higher than most others. Now, this is going to annoy a lot of people because obviously I'm not talking about the men. The men, there's loads of brilliant men painters, absolutely extraordinary men painters. But I do think, and one thing that I've seen in Women in Watercolor is I think women try extremely hard to prove their level. And I think the men have relaxed a lot on that, I don't need to show who I am anymore. They've been in this, a lot of them have been in the field for so long, their techniques are now relaxing. Where the women are at a very different stage. It's almost like the young painter who's trying to show that he's capable of getting this texture, this color, the composition right, the tonal values right, everything right. And at the end of the career, we just put in what's needed, and we sort of free up the painting. And I really do see this in Women in Watercolor. So it makes me wonder where the potential is going to take them. Because when you put a synergy of artists of that level together, there will be improvement. Yeah. And so the dynamic is amazing. How do you see that? Because you must experience that as well.
The level of paintings that are entered, I mean, the first year was amazing. But as it's progressed, now the level of painting is so high. Like, how we judge it is we have 9 judges, and it's totally blind. So the judges, all they see is the image. They can also click on the image and they can see the size of the painting, and I believe the title. I think they can see the title and the size. They cannot see the artist. They can't see the country. They can't see anything else, just the work of the image and the size of it. So it's totally blind to judge. And each judge rates from 1 to 20, and there's 9 judges. And then overall, how we pick the winners is there's a cutoff score. So anything that's above a certain score gets in. Anything that's below a certain score doesn't get in. And so there's a different number of accepted entries each year, because depending on the amount that gets those high marks. And it's gotten really big because the paintings are just so amazing. And some paintings, they're getting lower scores that are absolutely stunning paintings. And it's because they're being judged against these other paintings. that the quality is just so high. And we have so many of them, so many amazing artists that are entering with such great quality of work that, you know, the level of the ones that are actually accepted, you know, if you look down to the ones that are just honorable mention in the winners, I mean, they're like top ones in some other competitions. And it's just because there's so many amazing artworks that are being entered into this. So yeah, the judging process is actually really hard because there's so many entrants and the work is so good. It's hard to pick what's the top.
Yeah. But, you know, from a teaching point of view, I would also say to people, even if you think like you want to start, because it's a learning process, learning which painting that I have is best for which competition, being able to judge for yourself what subject will work best in what competition, what color scheme, what all the rest of it. It's really a learning curve, and it takes time to gain those skills. Even if an artist, say, just wants to learn the ropes of the judging process, go through that selection process, considering that there aren't those huge costs of transporting paintings and framing and all the rest of it, it's a really good competition to start learning. Getting into a competition is brilliant, but it's not the only aspect. So I would also be careful for the people watching this. If you think your paintings are not as good, that's not a good reason to not enter, because the main object that we learn from a competition is actually one of the most important that I know, and I've been painting for a long, long time, is that you learn how to study a market and you learn how to know which painting goes where, which painting you can get the best result from. And that doesn't take 1 or 2 exhibitions. That takes years. So you want to have exhibitions or competitions that you can use as a tool to say, okay, look, this is the exhibition. I'm looking at who the judges are. This is the sort of thing that people maybe have exhibited in the past. They got selected in the past. What do I have, or what can I offer to try and get into this painting process? And if you're not selected, it doesn't mean your painting's bad. This is, as a judge, I'm saying this is what a lot of people think. If their paintings are not selected, they automatically think it's because their paintings are not good. But you have to understand, maybe there is a cutoff mark and your painting was the next one. Or maybe for some reason, you know, this is the example I often give. It's a competition and there's already 10 of 50 paintings to be selected. And there's already 10 florals in the competition. You can't just keep adding extra florals. So, you know, there are many reasons why paintings are not selected. So it is such an important part of success for an artist to learn how to use competitions and exhibitions, group exhibitions, to start getting a better knowledge of the market, what will sell, where you'll get selected. And this is I find it such a good exhibition because, on another reason, and I'll give you the floor after this because otherwise I'll just keep going, there are 9 judges. So it's harder for the artist to understand which paintings will get selected. When there's only 1 judge, it's easier.
Yes, you can see that judge and their style and what they would pick. And yes, it's a lot easier. So, and so part of the thing was the first year we had 6 judges. And after that, I was like, you know what? I really want to just broaden this. Number one, because picking a judge is actually kind of difficult. You have to have someone that not only has good art, but has a knowledge of art, you know, so that they can look at another painting and know why it would get an award versus another. So it's not just necessarily someone that paints. It has to be someone that has that knowledge, that has experience with competitions, maybe judging other competitions, you know, that has that kind of background. But we have 5 different categories to enter into. So that was another kind of part of this competition. I felt like if you enter into a competition, like you said, if there's 10 florals and 50 are selected, how many florals can you really select? And so that was the other part of this, was let's do 5 different categories. So yeah, there's a still life and floral, there's a landscape category, there's and the other thing is, like, there's an abstract category. Lots of times in big painting competitions, abstracts get completely overlooked because you look at something else and you can see exactly what it is, or a certain type of judge is looking for something. And I thought, well, if we have a full category that's just abstract, it's one abstract graded against another. So if you're entering a floral, your floral's not being, going against an abstract. Your floral's going against the floral category. So it's the best of each category, not just overall. And on top of that, to have the 9 judges, I try to make sure that we have a complete variety of different countries that they're from, and a complete variety of different styles. So if you look on the Women in Watercolor website, the 9 judges that we have are totally different styles, totally different countries that they come from, different backgrounds, different everything, to kind of get that variety of different people looking at the art as well. And it's funny because a lot of things, when I'm judging, I just go in and score each entry. But at the end, when all the judges have finalized and I go in and I see the tally of scores, in the end, once everything's finalized and it's not altered at that point, just to be clear, I can go in and I see the different scores of all the judges, and they're totally different. So someone that might be a photorealistic painter might judge a photorealism painting really high, and another person that's plein air might judge it much different. So really, it's the tally of all those different judges' scores that get in. So you might think that your painting is not as good or won't get in, but it might appeal to a different judge. So just because your painting is a different style or, something like that, it is worth entering because there's so many different judges that are looking for different things. If you look at the winners from the past competitions, the artwork is totally different. It's all over the place. And again, we have top winners in each of those different categories. So that way, an abstract isn't being, judged against a floral, against a photorealistic, against a landscape. They're in totally different categories. And when the judges go through, they only judge one category at a time. So that's judged against each other. Then the next is judged against each other. So that really makes a big difference in the judging as well. So that's why I say, like, don't just enter one in each category. Really increase your chances. Because again, the prizes, we have over $14,000 in prizes. And the top prize is $2,200. And so we have lots of people that have entered and won first prize, won top prizes, that have never entered competitions before, that you don't recognize their name, that have never won something before. We've had many winners that this is the first time that they've ever entered a competition. And those are the most fun because you always get an email back that says like, this made my whole year. I got into this, So I always say, especially because you don't have to frame and ship and have all those added costs, you're really not losing anything to try. And you have so much to gain by even trying, even if you don't get in. You learn how to go onto that entry website, how to photograph your painting, how to crop that photograph, how to enter it, how to enter all the information, do it by a deadline. All those things are huge skills to gain as an artist.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, but that's a good thing, so you don't limit the number of paintings that someone can enter then.
5 paintings. You can enter 5 total, 1 in each category. So you can't enter 5 in one category, but you can enter 1 in each category. And part of that is also lots of people only paint one thing. So this was also trying to get artists to say like, oh, I haven't done an abstract. Maybe I should do something to try and enter into that category and kind of broaden the things that you might try to paint, to see if you could get something in each different category to try.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing that I also noticed is that because people do a lot of people are very reserved, and so they're always like, oh, I'll never win. I'll never get selected. You're automatically guaranteeing that you won't get selected if you don't try. And it is funny because it simply comes down to not who's the best artist, but who puts their painting in. Because you can have some really brilliant painters out there and they just don't put their paintings in the competition. So you should sort of close yourself off saying, oh, everyone's better than I am. It's not worth it. Because what if there's no one exhibiting, no one putting their paintings in, and you would make the top cut. So, it's like everything in life, you have to try. And when you start the process of making choices, going through, taking the initiative, you progress. You automatically progress. So you can't lose. But it's such a good platform to learn from, because the analysis of the market is where I see the biggest hurdle for most, even professional artists, to be honest. Most people get stuck. How do I sell my paintings? I don't know where to put my paintings. How do I know where my paintings are going to get selected? So these sort of shows are brilliant learning opportunities. So excellent. Have you got any ideas of where you want to take the competition?
Yeah, so this year was the first year we actually opened up a membership for women in watercolor. So it started right at the end of last year. But again, the quality of this competition is so amazing. But we had lots of other artists that said, I'm just beginning and I want to be involved in women in watercolor, and I'm definitely not there yet for a big international competition, but I want to be involved. How can I be involved? I want to be part of this. And I got, a lot of feedback from different artists saying that, and a lot of my students as well, that, might just be starting out, might not be doing paintings from their own photographs, might not be doing their own stuff quite yet, but love art and they want to be involved. And so we actually opened up to a membership just the end of last year, and it's going amazing. So we have a members gallery. So just by joining a membership, you can put whichever painting you would like up, and it goes up in the members gallery. So you automatically have a painting on a main website already just by being a member. So that was the first part of it. So that these people that are just starting out, that might not be ready to enter the competition yet, you can get your painting on the website as well, just because you're a member. So we have over 600 members and growing already, just from opening it up at the end of last year. And if you go onto the Women in Watercolor website and click on Members Gallery, we have our signature members first, and they've gotten into 3 of the main international competition. But after that, we have a amazing members gallery. Like, the work on there is just absolutely amazing. So if you're looking for art to put in your home or something like that, go look through, and it has all the information to contact. You can click on their social media, get in touch with them, and see more of their work as well. So it's not just one image. Each artist is allowed to have a link so that you can click on to get to their social media, so that you have an immediate way to see more of their work, learn more about them. So then on top of that, just opening up a membership, we started a members only show. So it's a non-juried, online only, international, members only show. So this way, you could enter something, and this one was different than the juried show, that you could enter a painting that was not from your own reference photo. So for those artists that were just starting out, that might have just used a photo. So the thing was, you had to have permission to use the photo. You couldn't just get a random photo, a copyrighted image or something. You had to have written permission to use that photo if you wanted to enter it in. But then you get that up on the website as well. So we opened up that members only show this year, and that went amazing. And the work on it, even though it was a non-juried show, if you go through all of the entries on there, those are amazing as well. So I was super impressed. I wasn't quite sure what we would get in being a non-juried show. But again, the caliber of the artwork in that non-juried members show is absolutely amazing too.
Yeah, but it's a brilliant platform to have. because that's the training for the competition. So you're working on different levels, which can help people in feel comfortable to progress step by step. It's such a huge opportunity for people. But honestly, I'm not surprised, because from the feeling that I got over the last 4 exhibitions that I was sort of watching as the judging was coming through, there's such a professionalism. There is, for me, I feel there is an intelligence behind it. It's just not, okay, we're having a competition and we'll just do this. There's actually a lot of thought into it. And there is a real, I'll say it again, I've said it 3 or 4 times already, but the opportunity for learning is huge, because that platform isn't something that really does exist. Probably will in the future with loads of other people, but it's such a good opportunity for all different levels, whether it be the beginners, the amateurs, to the professionals, you know. So what would you want to say? Go on.
Coming up soon, I keep saying soon, of course. In the very beginning, my plan was also to do in-person events. Of course, we got up and running, and within that first year, we hit COVID. And everything closed down. You couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. So of course, now we've been out of it for a bit. We keep having these reoccurrences, but I do have an in-person event with no dates coming up yet, but starting the planning process to figure out how to do that so that it would be open to an international group, not just within the US, but that, you know, if you wanted to travel, you could come. Kind of like a convention of sorts, where we would offer classes from top artists that you would come for a weekend or a couple days. You could take classes, you could watch, you know, live painting happening, that there's lots of other events and opportunities to happen so that we could do an in-person kind of big event for women in watercolor as well. So that's in the works coming up. Trying to figure out the logistics of, you know, really making that work to be open to as many people as possible, finding a good location, all those things. So we're really excited that that's going to be coming up, not this year, but hopefully we'll get the planning, find the place, everything. So hopefully that event will start next year. That not only we would have the members, that we would have the international competition, but that we would also have a huge in-person sort of thing for this as well.
It's huge. You know, watercolor really needs a better infrastructure, because, you know, it really does need it, and it's coming. So, you know, I'm hats off to you, because I know I've curated shows, international shows, and obviously judging, and it's such a big job, and it's very hard as an artist to manage, you know, setting up all these shows, all the organization, and try and maintain your own paintings at the same time. And it takes a certain kind of person to sort of say, you know what, this is my painting time, but I'm going to allocate this amount to all the other wonderful artists that I think deserve, and I'm going to keep the rest of it for me. But I'm going to dedicate a lot of time to others. And so, you know, the mindset is there. It's very visible. So, you know, I think a lot of people will be happy to benefit from your experience and from the competition. You know, I can only say just inscribe, because you never know what's going to happen. You know, you never know what's going to happen, and you never know which opportunity is going to come. It's sort of like, I used to play basketball. I used to play, you know, many years of basketball. And I always say, just go for the basket, nonstop, nonstop, nonstop. And it's the same thing. Just keep playing the game of learning how to exhibit and then play the competitions. Because as you do it, you'll break through. It's only a matter of time. But
you can't
don't try,
if you don't try.
Won't.
So again, that's why I just wanted something where people could try and be a little bit easier, a little bit less pressure to enter something. Because if you don't get in, you didn't pay some crazy fee to get in. And if you do get in, then you're not like, what do I do? How do I frame? How do I ship? How do I, you know, come up with these? Sometimes it's $1,000, you know, by the end to have a painting framed, shipped, especially if you want to go to the opening or award ceremony. If it doesn't sell and doesn't get an award, then the shipping back. It can easily be $1,000 for a show, and that's shipping within the US. You know, for an international show, it's huge expenses, which are worth it for these big shows. Let me say, for the big shows, it's definitely worth it, but it's a lot harder, you know, when you're just starting out, to invest that kind of money into something when you're not quite there yet. So, you know, this was kind of a way for professional artists, but also for people that just want to kind of get a toe in and try.
Yeah, brilliant. So we're going to wrap up. Is there something that you want to say? You want to add something that you can think of for anyone who is sort of sitting in the studio, perhaps thinking, okay, so like, you know, I'm frustrated with my paintings. This is what happens to most people. I'm frustrated with my paintings. I'm not feeling like I'm progressing. What would you say to someone who's in that position?
So I always say to take some classes. When I was starting out painting, and even now, I still see an artist I like and I take a class. So I have an online school. It makes it really easy. So it's through Patreon. I have over 140 full-length tutorials on there that you have immediate access to. I've made it $14 to join. I wanted it to be accessible to everybody, not make it expensive. So you don't have to pay $500 to go to some crazy class. I have things on there for every level. So I have really basic beginner paintings, all the way up to full sheet dollar bills, you know, that are going to take you 2 months to paint. I have everything in there for every level. So I really, and whether it's with me or it's with another artist, you have a different style. Find an artist that is similar to your style or similar to what you want your style to be, and take a class. You can go in person, which is amazing. You get much more out of an in-person class for sure, but that's not always available or money-wise that you can afford or take time off from work. So doing online classes is just an absolutely amazing way to kind of gain more knowledge, broaden your horizons of different types of painting. Or if you do a certain type of painting and you feel stuck, take a class with someone who does a totally different style than you. Or just go onto YouTube, find someone's YouTube channel you like, even if you don't want to pay for a class. So many artists have amazing YouTube channels. I have them. I know that you do. And you can go onto someone's YouTube and just watch some videos of them painting, get inspired again, you know, to kind of get unstuck and really just kind of get out there, get out of a funk. My other thing is you have to make time to paint. So I always tell all my students that. Everyone says, oh, I just didn't have time. You know, especially with watercolor, you don't need long. You don't have to do a whole painting in one sitting, because you can let the paint dry and come back to it at any time. So if you have a half hour, sit down and do a 5x7, you know, something small, something just to get your creative going, or get a journal, you know, paint in a journal for a little while. You can take it along with you. If you're waiting in a doctor's office, you know, you can do a little sketch or something like that. Just keep those creative juices flowing and trying new things, and it'll just kind of keep you motivated to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Now listen, thank you so much. So give us the dates. Give everybody I'll put the link
Yes.
to the competition down the bottom. Go through the dates again, because the entries are open already.
Yes, the entry just opened April 1st. So it just opened at the beginning of this week. So entry is open. Don't wait till the end of the competition to enter. So it's April 1st through June 8th. Entry closes on June 8th. Don't wait till the last week to enter. Get your paintings done, get them entered now, because people always at the end say, I had trouble uploading, or I had trouble photographing, or I had trouble logging into the site, or, you know, I had some glitch, and they waited for the last day and they missed the cutoff. So don't wait till the end of a competition if you're going to enter, for sure. It's open now. Get your paintings ready, get them entered. You have until June, but don't wait till the very end. I'm the worst at procrastinating, and then I get to like the end and I'm frazzled, and it's like, so get all your stuff together in plenty of time, get them entered, so that you can get something in each category. You know, that way you can kind of look at it and say, oh, I haven't entered that category yet. You know, so get them all in there, get them entered before the cutoff date for sure.
Alrighty, perfect. All right, well, listen, thank you so much, Lynn.
Yes,
you're just a bubble of sunshine, and I'm looking forward to seeing the paintings. To be honest, I'm sitting there waiting and
I'm
waiting.
so happy that you're a judge for us this year. Yep.
Oh, it's with pleasure. Honestly, it's yeah, it's you know, for a couple of years there we've spoken about it, but you know, happy to be.
Yes, finally got all the dates lined up, so I'm really glad it worked out.
Alrighty. So I'll put all the links down for your courses, for the watercolor competition, and your website, because you know when you want to take a sneaker or baseball balls, and you can literally just quite pull them out of a painting. It's really quite impressive. So with pleasure, thank you very much.